Welcome back everyone to theCUBE. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We are live streaming Nutanix NEXT here in Chicago as the cloud merges in with AI operating systems. The world has changed. We're seeing a lot of fast enablement on the developer side, but certainly cloud, on-prem, edge, distributed computing is the hybrid infrastructure. Great guests here. Tarkan Maner, who is the President and Chief Commercial Officer of Nutanix. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Saud, Group Product Manager of Microsoft. Thanks for coming on. And we got Scott Manchester, Chief Product and Technology at Nerdio, former Microsoft for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Now Chief CTO at Nerdio, which is a big role partnership, so thanks for coming on, appreciate it. Top of the morning to you.
Awesome.
So first of all, Tarkan, I have to ask you, your keynote yesterday, I know you were rushed because I heard there was a clock, you want to stay on time, but you had to get a lot in on your keynote. The ecosystem is a force multiplier for Nutanix. You're seeing the role of the ecosystem evolve significantly with the AI environment because it's building on top of cloud and now enterprise computing all coming together. Quickly explain that dynamic.
Look, you and I talked about this actually a few weeks back. I love the session we had, by the way, John. I'm getting a lot of comments. It was a 30-minute session almost, and a lot of customers, partners called me about our discussion. Let me go back to that discussion a little bit. Geopolitics, economy, supply chain issues, customers are dealing with a lot of, can I say the word crap on this?
Yeah.
They're dealing with a lot of
We're
stuff.
not FCC regulated,
it's a lot of stuff going on. I'll be honest, it's difficult to be a CIO right now. So having said all this, in the backdrop, you're seeing massive migration, massive new talk about things are changing, as you know this. You have a PhD in this yourself, with AI, with hybrid cloud, with cyber. And then, in the backdrop, what we're seeing is massive migrations also with, legacy systems like, VMware. Hundreds of millions of cores are going to be available for change, going hybrid cloud. And Nutanix is one of those platforms, obviously, as a target for customers to move to. And being a platform is hard. You're running all these applications, all the use cases, and one of the biggest and most important use cases is end-user computing. End-user computing basically impacts everything. Security, performance management, overall employee satisfaction. And that employee might be the CEO, the board member, and a task worker. So having said all this, who's better at this than companies like Microsoft, Nerdio, and Nutanix?
Well,
so this is a three-way partnership basically we're super excited about.
Well, I like this partnership because there's some Microsoft DNA in Nerdio, I want to get to that, but end user computing, I just love that term, especially the way you said it, but let's just unpack that. AI is the ultimate end user computing situation. I mean, you have the interface to the data is an AI front end, so all the AI native success is either some sort of wrapper or some sort of refactored end user computing paradigm. Your comment, I see you smirking there.
Yeah.
Explain what your thoughts are on this.
So 5 years ago, when we released Windows 365, in fact, we did that together, we released Windows 365 in this concept of a cloud PC for humans. Now we're taking it forward and we're actually looking at cloud PCs for agents. Why? So we can free up the human to step away from that legacy app UI and let an agent interact with that so that the human can go do more valuable decision-making work than interacting with the UI. And so that's where we see things going long-term, but the reason we're so interested in this partnership with both Nerdio and Nutanix is, I was actually at a customer meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the customer said, hey, I'm ready to move all of my DAS to Windows 365 tomorrow. And this is their global CIO, and he said, but I have a problem. What do I do with on-prem? You don't have a solve for that. And because of AVD Hybrid, and because of the work that we've done together, I was able to say to them, no, we've got a solve. We can solve that. AVD Hybrid, come talk to our partners like Nutanix, like Nerdio, and we have a solve for you. And all of a sudden, that opened up the entire conversation from a can't have the conversation to let's talk.
You're the group product manager, which means that Microsoft language you oversee a lot. AI is an opportunity to abstract away a lot of the old product things and optimize under the covers. And I think here is a great example. Explain that dynamic because you kind of hit on it. AI is an opportunity to change the scope of product management and do some better things faster.
Yeah, totally. So the thing we announced at Ignite is Windows 365 for agents, and that enabled AI capabilities inside of Windows 365. That's that concept of giving a cloud PC to an agent to interact with the cloud PC. But when we look at it, we actually, something you said, Tarkan, around the unified user experience for admins really resonated for me. Because when I look at what we did with the product over the last 5 years, is we moved to a singular end user experience, right? In end user computing, it's all about the end user. Yeah. And by having that consistent experience between Windows 365, AVD, and now AVD Hybrid, we have a single end user experience. What does that mean? Well, it means that as an IT admin and as an organization, you don't have to retrain your users every single time you make an infrastructure change. It becomes a fluid back-end decision. The end user experience stays consistent for the human.
I think that's a great use case. That's going to be a historic, probably a footnote in this AI history, all this innovation on the product, streamlining, architectures, releases, and coordination. Scott, let's bring you in because you have the Microsoft pedigree as well. At CTO at Nerdio, you're a key part. Explain what Nerdio does and the role in the end user computing, specifically with the Microsoft Nutanix relationship.
Yeah, interesting enough that I was the one that actually wrote the original partner agreement with Nerdio when I was leading the Windows Cloud team at Microsoft. That was about 7 years ago now. And at the time, Nerdio was a small company that was an MSP, hosting workloads for end users, virtualization type of workloads. They saw an opportunity with Azure Virtual Desktop as being a very disruptive technology in the ecosystem. And they really saw the signals before most. Now, the Windows Cloud products, AVD and Windows 365, are the top rated products by any leading analyst, and if you talk to customers here at these events, they really did disrupt the ecosystem. And a large part of that was because of the partnerships that we established at Microsoft at the time for partners like Nerdio to take those technologies and extend the value. And I think Tarkan and Nutanix have that same DNA, right? They really expand the reach and amplify the value of the products through partnerships. The reason we're all here together, frankly, is because of Tarkan and that same vision. And that's led to just a tremendous growth at Nerdio. And for me, taking the next step after 25 years at Microsoft, it seemed like a very natural place to go.
What attracted to you, Nerdio? What attracted you there? What was the, now so you knew the company. What was the, I mean, that's a big leap.
Yeah, for sure.
What was the motivation? Share that story.
Well, one thing is they're an exclusive Microsoft house, right? They extend the value of the entire M365 suite and the Windows Cloud products. So for me to go work on the products that I built at Microsoft and then to go work in a company that I've now had this long-standing relationship with to continue to extend the value. I know where, built both AVD and Windows 365. I know where all the gaps are. I know where all the opportunities are to continue to extend the reach. The last real opportunity I had at Microsoft to talk about Windows Cloud was at Ignite, where we announced Azure Virtual Desktop hybrid support, and also cloud apps and Frontline shared new modes of Windows 365. And being they're brand new, many organizations don't fully understand the economic value of those new options, and at Nerdio we can help turn the lights on those capabilities and help even migrate end users that may have started early in our journey with Windows 365 5 years ago, using the enterprise license available at that time, and now getting better understanding of the usage patterns and actually using AI technology to see the patterns that the naked eye can't see, and then to actually show an admin what the economics would be if you moved them from this solution to this solution, and then facilitate the migration. Kind of getting back to Tarkan's starting point is, this is what I call the great EUC migration era we're living in. Whether they're moving from one hypervisor to another, from one VDI solution to another, and organizations need a trusted advisor. They need somebody to help guide them on that journey, and that's really where Nerdio. You know, it's interesting, in following the Microsoft ecosystem all these years and looking at how the market is today globally across all companies, it's heterogeneous, there's interoperability needs, but you got to be highly cohesive in your world. But the scale of where the cloud and the on-prem is going is significant. Can you guys share your thoughts on this? Because the role of the ecosystem isn't yesterday's playbook. What's the biggest change you've seen in the ecosystem in this modern era? You got rapid product development and iteration, you got better integration capabilities, people are integrating tighter. What is the key things that people should think about? Because you can move faster, scale at production is the #1 North Star everyone has on their agenda. And they got to run across the global footprint. You got sovereignty. It seems chaotic, but not really at the same time. What are your thoughts on this ecosystem edge
that's an opportunity.
Maybe I took a quick stab at this.
Sure.
So look, great points on both Microsoft and Nerdio side of things. I kind of like talked about this a little bit earlier. We're seeing minimum 200 million cores are changing hands on the data center side of things with all these amazing data center technologies. By the way, I always say this: competition doesn't make us bitter; it makes us better. Our customers want outcomes, and I am super focused personally, and as Nutanix, and I know as our partner ecosystem, to focus on those outcomes. So you talked about economics. We talked about obviously customer satisfaction. Yes, pricing might be great. You know, the numbers might be great, but we want to make sure also end users, specifically in the IT space, have a great experience. Yeah. So having said all this, who's better at that, than Microsoft, Nerdio, Nutanix? So as those data centers are migrating, on the end user side of things, there are billions of users are changing hands, and technology is impacting them. Obviously, cyber is a big deal. With AI, you talked about it also, Saud. So we're trying to make sure, as this happens, we have a specific focus also on user profiles and user profiles tying to specific use cases in each vertical. As you all know, regulated industries like healthcare, banking, finance, state and local, to a certain extent education, and public sector, they are maniacally focused on this migration. And numbers are big, migration is big. To your point, the scale is huge, but also the quality of scale. My wife is in oncology, in healthcare. Guess what? She is still dealing with an old laptop from 1997 with Epic system running on 4.7, running some old VDI technology, doing patient care for folks who have terminally ill state of affairs. So these things are going to upgrade. So we're doing a lot of work with Epic. We're doing a lot of work with PAX. We're doing a lot of work with Cerner and McKesson. Some of also our customers. With Siemens. It's not only three of us, but the entire hardware, software, services ecosystem. We were talking about Accenture earlier, how they're working through with Avanade, with Microsoft, the joint venture, to make sure we deliver outcomes. So to your point, scale is huge. This migration is huge, but also the quality and how is going to be big.
Yeah, but that is a great example to my point. This ecosystem now means they want to go to the cloud. Because what's their choice? Their choice is, it's this hybrid cloud we're talking about here.
100%,
so
100%.
End user computing and VDI is a perfect use case of modernization switch.
Spot on.
So it's not like a huge, 10-year migration. We're talking about flip a switch. I want to go to the cloud. I want to have on-prem.
Exactly. We see multiple customer patterns. We see the customer that is like, hey, I want AVD hybrid as my quickest stepping stone. To Tarkan's point, I have to get off of my legacy environments. I have to do it now. I have assets that I need to sweat. I need to solve now. And AVD hybrid enables that. We also see customers, like the example I was giving, where they want to go cloud native, but they have this thing that's holding them back, and we need a comprehensive solution for the customer, not a point singular solution.
What's holding them back? What's the key driver there?
A lot of it is just legacy, not from the infrastructure for EUC, but really the app infrastructure behind that, the legacy apps, where the app was written and assumes that it has connectivity right to its back end. And that's where it becomes a little bit of a challenge. Sometimes it's regulatory, sometimes they just haven't had the conversation yet with their regulators to open up that conversation. But we see those things as the customer doesn't have line of sight to when that'll change, and we don't want to force that conversation with them. We want them to move on their terms.
It's interesting, Tarkan brings up his wife who's in the medical field. Healthcare is one of the hottest areas in AI, coincidentally. But this is a great example of where domain expertise and partners come in, because Microsoft, you guys have an ecosystem. You have an ecosystem, so I might be the integrator for that domain-specific vertical. I might know the regulars, so I think a lot of the bottlenecks are structural in either the channel, the process, or the people. I guess the question is there an easy button?
I'd say that's our domain. We're the easy button for these technologies. Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of choice, and I think Saud framed a lot of the challenges organizations face as they're trying to navigate these choices. And usually it's just, you need a partner to help guide you, a partner that is durable over time, because things are going to change, and I kind of equate it to your financial advisor. You think about your financial advisor, right? We probably all have someone we've worked with perhaps for years, and in my case, decades. I started with them when my wife and I were first starting to plan for having children and planning buying our first house, and so I've got this long depth of information that I've shared with them over 2.5 decades. But also the breadth of information. All of my income, all of my expenses, all of my planning and things that I want to do, and now getting closer to retirement, thinking about those things. So I've got breadth of information and depth of time. And that's a good metaphor for what Nerdio provides for organization. We can look at the usage pattern of your organization over time, and the more insights we can get about everything in your EUC estate, the better guidance we can give you. So we tell customers, even if you've just renewed your license with another vendor, now's a great time to come to us, so that next time you're up for a renewal, we've helped you paint the picture of what the best spot is for where you run your EUC workload, the best technologies to use, and actually help facilitate those migrations.
You've been on both sides of the table. Explain that, how different that role is, because that's basically a trusted advisor. Always been a key partner, but now with technology, the role kind of gets better, and you're seeing on AI, that's the use case that's jumping out. The productivity is obviously everywhere, but the domain-specific value, highly accelerating value. And compare that, you've been on both sides.
For sure, well, when I started, the Azure Virtual Desktop development, when I released it and went GA, in fact, we announced it here in 2016 at this venue, in September of 2016, we didn't have a GUI. We shipped Azure Virtual Desktop where it was all managed by PowerShell and REST APIs. And what I did is I reached out to the ecosystem of partners and said, hey, would you partners be interested in building a GUI? And of course, Nerdio was the first one to sign up. And so Nerdio built the actual very first graphical user interface around AVD. And it just continued to stay out in front as Microsoft kept building. And I always had this principle at Microsoft, we're not in the business of putting partners out of business, but we're in the business of always keeping partners on their toes, keeping them to build value on top, because ultimately we built the GUI for AVD, and ultimately we built a whole bunch of other capabilities, but Nerdio and other partners have stayed way out in front. Microsoft does a fantastic job of meeting with partners, giving them insight into their roadmap. They can see where there's going to be an overlap with what Microsoft is doing, and new technologies Microsoft releases that creates additional opportunities for partners. I
mean, Microsoft's legendary. For the people who don't know the history, the Mount Rushmore of ecosystem partners, Microsoft's legendary, well documented, developers, partners, and that's what I was getting to, because you have the DNA, but now there's a speed button. You have scale, speed is driving all the value, and this is changing the ecosystem and also the product. So how has AVD changed with the hybrid? Because hybrid cloud is also one. Hybrid cloud is the standard now.
I think the interesting thing with AVD hybrid is we're actually bringing what I call the connectivity plane of AVD to all of those on-prem environments. In the past, customers had to go and instantiate their own gateways on their internet connections and build out capabilities, point solutions on-prem with legacy patterns. With AVD, we're saying, no, you get the entire power of the Microsoft Cloud. AVD has points of presence and gateways in every Azure region. We have UDP relays across the globe. But not just that, the Microsoft Cloud is peered to every single ISP in the world, and we say to them, hey, the shortest path to our network is that you come to us. Don't go through the rest of your peering, come straight to us, and we will get you to that end user device. And that's where the end user experience, to Tarkan's point, really starts to change, is we can say, actually, no, we've got a global network, we will get your users to their resources as quickly as possible.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Networking is the key in a lot of the technology. So, I mean,
milliseconds matter.
Everything is, I'll tell you.
Trust, security, latency, quality.
100%. When you have a network delay above 90 milliseconds, you're going to have that cursor moving like this. And now my kids are dealing on their iPads and laptops and for their schoolwork. And these are, I'm talking about kids, elementary school kids. Guess what? When that experience is not there, they start complaining. My 9-year-old is like almost a 20-year-old in my time, asking for user experience that I've never seen. I did not know any of these things when I was a 9-year-old. And the game is changing. Yeah. The new generation is expecting user experience, and
they're going to write their own GUIs.
100%, exactly. So one thing I also want to mention, contextually, Yesterday we had CIO at State Street, one of the biggest index funds. I don't know if you all know, but the largest top 3 index funds with Vanguard, with BlackRock, with State Street, big Nutanix customers. We've done a lot of work with them. And State Street was on stage talking about their hybrid multi-cloud implementation with AVD. And some of the also legacy systems they use. They are big partners with multiple people. They use Nutanix, they use VMware, they use Citrix, they use Omnisa. They have every asset in the world working with Dell, Supermicro, with Cisco, multiple ecosystems. A lot of companies are doing all of these things. And all these migrations now leading them, how can we deliver better user experience at a lower cost, better security, better manageability, better availability, better reliability, and at scale. Now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of users in one bank. Now tie that to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were on stage. They were talking about their VMware migration. Number 1 workload, EUC, because of HIPAA regulation. And they have to make everything easier, but at the same time, secure. Control tighter, but easy to access the data. All these things are kind of like fighting each other, against each other, and to find that balance is so hard unless you have an ecosystem partner like this, integrated solutions.
Well, I love the partnership story here, but I have to ask, just curious, what you guys think. The sentiment of end user computing migrations on the scale of attitudes was neutral, acquiescing. Now it's more enthusiasm, okay? And we're seeing that, because it's doable. The question that comes up a lot is, what's the confidence level? So can you guys explain, one, why the attitude has been rising up to basically highly enthused to confident, and what are the confidence variables people need to check off? Because confidence is everything, because this is the end user we're talking about.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I've seen across customer deployments is really it's the end user experience, and if we can give the end user a better experience. That plays out when you look at help desk tickets, for example. That's the measure of, is the user getting so frustrated that they're willing to pick up the phone, go into chat and raise a ticket, or not? And we've actually seen customers that go above 80% reduction in help desk tickets when they move to our stack.
So that's a good indicator.
That is a great indicator.
They're pissed off enough to make a help desk request, and it's highly qualified.
Exactly, and so that's the kind of thing that we see across the board. But again, that is our common user experience, our common connectivity plane. What we needed to then unlock was the on-prem environment so that we have a holistic thing that we can bring that to more places and more customers.
So the single engine approach, it's easier basically, it's not a hassle.
Exactly.
Right? That's where the attitude shifted. Okay, we can have a discussion.
And totally, when we rebuilt the Windows app, we actually went and did a whole bunch of design work. And Scott can talk to this, because when the remote desktop app was built, it was built as a scrappy project by a team of technical people trying to get something out the door. But 5 years ago, when we started Windows 365, that changed. We said, no, we now have the Windows brand. To your point on ecosystem, Windows is the original ecosystem for Microsoft. There is a lot of responsibility that comes when you're part of Windows. And so we actually went through full design cycles on the end user experience to understand. And if you look at it, it looks like a modern experience in that app. And we're actively in the process of getting to end of life for those legacy apps, so we can get to that singular app experience, so that we have a unified hybrid experience end to end all the way to Windows 365 in our cloud.
Awesome. All right guys, it's great to have you all legends in the industry, been there, done that. AI is a great enabler. We're seeing a step function change in value proposition, product acceleration. I guess my final question is, you've known Tarkan. How's he doing? Is he doing a good job? We're live right now, so now it's time to lay it out. Is Nutanix, how is Nutanix
Hold on, let me give my credit card.
Well, we're here, and we're here in Chicago at this amazing event because Tarkan feels the same way we do about partnerships. In fact, he brought together an amazing community on the opening day, and just to see all our constituents coming together in one room rallying around this event is a testament to Tarkan. In fact, even Tarkan's boss got on stage and said, I bet Tarkan knows every single person's name in this room, right? And I think that's the part that this community really needs, because when we do come together as a community, we can create disruption and create opportunities for migration and really bring more visibility into the value that EUC has for an organization. So hats off to Tarkan for getting us all here together.
No, thank you. Super proud, on behalf of the entire network and ecosystem. Same thing with Scott, you at Microsoft, Nerdio. Saud, you've been a great partner, obviously, Microsoft. And to your point, as we were discussing, and you know this, John, you've been a phenomenal friend, connecting all the dots with a lot of these vendors. By the way, he knows everyone too. I'll just tell you, as we do. One key thing one key thing I was going to say, again, going back to the same story, outcomes truly matter. For us to give the best outcomes to customers, the community has to come together, because it's not only about us. Security, again, manageability. There are tons of manageability, observability vendors here, partnering with us like Dynatrace, a lot of startups. We're doing tons of work, obviously with Microsoft directly about this as well. Security, full disclosure, I'm on the board of Agile. We do a lot of endpoint security, working with Nerdio, working with Microsoft, and making sure the control point is there. So it's a complete ecosystem from the back end to the front end to the cloud, connecting everything around those things we talked about, from security to manageability to availability to reliability. One key thing, however, I always bring this up, for us to be successful, having that contextual intelligence about the customer, the verticals they're in, whether they're regulated or unregulated industry, locations they are in, the countries they're in, with sovereign, what's going on in our world because of the geopolitics and the wars and everything we're going to deal with, and tie that to specific user profiles, from a task worker to a knowledge worker to a professional worker, because the solutions we might be pushing, connecting, securing might be contextual and customized for the right outcome, and that comes only from a group of people like this. So I'm really grateful that you guys are here today.
Well, great chat about partnership and community. Doing our part here in theCUBE, I'm John Furrier, your host, here live streaming in Chicago at Next. We'll be right back after this short break.